this. A 2010 BMW 535 xDrive. Not just any BMW 5 Series. This is a BMW 5 Series wagon, the E61. This particular E61 is a little special though. It's not quite the same because it has a 6-speed manual transmission in it. Very rare for these things. The final year, 2010, which is what this is, they made probably under like a dozen of them. They only made 200 of them in the final year in total with the automatic transmissions, and the manual transmissions were only a small fraction of that. In total, for the entire span of the E61, they only made about 600-700 manual wagons. So these things are called unicorns for a reason. They're very rare vehicles. I'm going to show you a little bit out what I picked up here. Tell you a little bit about why it was a cheap one. It has some issues. We're going to do a little walk around. Yeah, let's check it out. This particular example of the E61 up for cheap. It's about half the price that these things normally go for. If you look on Bring a Trailer, these things can go up $25,000, sometimes $35,000 for some very nice examples of it. They're enthusiast cars, and when they have the 6-speed in them, they can get pricey. Now, there's a reason why this one was far less than that. It has some issues. It had some front end damage at one point. Nothing structural. It was mostly the hood and the quarter panels and the headlights, which the previous owner actually repaired, but he put a 545 front end on it, and he repainted it in his garage, and you can tell that he repainted it in his garage. Now, he did a pretty good job, honestly. I'm pretty surprised that it came out this well inside of a garage with whatever equipment he had, but there is some hazing in the paint. And there's definitely some texture in the bumper. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but trust me, it's there. We're gonna try to buff all that out. Yeah, I'm gonna run some compound over it and put some sealant on it. You know, clay bar probably before that. We'll see what it looks like. I have high hopes. Some of the other problems that this thing has: the front strut is completely blown. It actually makes some pretty good noise when you're turning. You can feel some vibration at highway speed. It's pretty bad. It's leaking oil all over the place there. So I'm just going to replace both struts. And as you can see, this thing has the 545 wheels on it, which I'm not a huge fan of. Not to mention they're very beat up. The clear coat is pretty much completely gone on them. They're very dirty. They're curb rash. They're some ugly wheels. Luckily, the previous owner has the OEM wheels for this thing, and they're in very good condition. He just didn't have tires on them. I went and bought tires. I'm going to go back over to his place. He's going to mount them for me, change out the TPMS on them. So we're going to go back to OEM here. It is a 3-liter twin turbocharged inline 6 engine. It is buttery smooth. The code name for this thing is the N54. A lot of tuners love this thing because you can make some huge power out of it with just a simple tune and a few other odds and ends. You can see this one has seen better days. Runs really nice. Runs nice and smooth. Down in here, there's 2 turbos. So there's a turbo that sits on this bank and a turbo that sits on this bank, and they're each responsible for providing the boost that makes this thing produce 300 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque, which hopefully that's not going to be that for long. When I picked this thing up, the previous owner said that it had a misfire under acceleration. There's a misfire at idle, which I think is due to carbon deposit in the intake. Either way, we're gonna wall it blast it. It's a good thing to do. It's a good idea to do on these engines, especially when they're high mileage and you have no maintenance history on them. Might as well get it done. As far as I can tell, it doesn't have a misfire under acceleration. Actually, accelerates very smoothly. It is probably the smoothest engine that I've ever owned. I love BMW inline sixes. They're just so great. What I think is actually happening is on the transfer case, there is a bushing. It's the transmission bushing. It's part of the transfer case. It's completely shot. I don't know what happened there, but it looked like somebody rammed a screwdriver through it. And what I think was happening is when the all-wheel drive was engaging, because the all-wheel drive engages milliseconds in this car, it was engaging the transfer case, and that was kind of like rocking the transmission and rocking everything else and making a nice like clunking, and it was causing some stuttering to happen on acceleration. I disengaged the all-wheel drive system. You just pull a fuse on these things, and it appears to be fine now. It's not making any of those misfires from what the guy said, or any of the stuttering issues. So it's definitely something associated with the all-wheel drive system. Definitely something I got to take a look at. The first thing I'm going to do is replace that bushing to see if that solves it. If not, got to dive a little deeper. I did take out, there's a solenoid that goes into the transfer case, and that engages the transfer case. It's just like a little like metal worm screw that kind of just rotates back and forth. And I took that off to see if that was an issue, because I know on these things sometimes that is an issue. It was not. It looked brand new. I re-greased it, put it all back together. It's fine. So we're going to see what I can fix there, take care of this so-called misfire. It's definitely leaking oil from a few places. So I'm going to replace the oil cooler gasket and the oil filter housing gasket. It kind of goes back in here. The valve cover gasket is definitely leaking. You can see some of that glistening down in there. You see that? Yeah, that's not great. But, it doesn't leak that much oil. It doesn't leak as much oil as my E46 BMW. What is surprising about this thing is that all of the electronics work. I don't know how that's possible in a 5 Series from 10 years ago, but they do. The sunroof works, all the pixels in the dash work, the CIC, Command Infotainment Center, that works. The tailgate functions kinda. The hydraulic arm that lifts it up is kind of screwed up. I'll show you that in a minute. But other than that, it runs and drives. The air suspension functions in this thing. It goes up and down exactly the way it's supposed to. It doesn't make any weird noises. Again, very surprising. It might need a wheel bearing, kind of making some noise. I want to repair the strut first and see if that helps a little bit. The paint's all actually pretty good on this thing. It does have one little blemish right here. Nothing I can really do about that. It's not very big. It's kind of bowed in a little bit. Not the end of the world. Other than that, it's real dirty. The guy never cleaned it apparently, so I'm gonna clean it up. It's got a 300 horsepower twin turbocharged inline 6 in it, and it can get going if you need it to. It's a very heavy car though, very heavy. It does not handle like anything I've ever owned. It's a very large, cumbersome car. It does not have the sport suspension on it, but it's not supposed to. This is supposed to be a luxury vehicle that when you get on the throttle, you feel something. I love it. I love this thing. It doesn't drive the best. It's not inspected. There's clear issues with it. It makes creaks and rattles, but I'm gonna fix it up, and yeah, she's gonna be nice. So tune in to the next few episodes of this. We're gonna see what we can do. We'll see how far this gets. I don't exactly know what we're gonna do on this channel, but this is the start. One thing that is pretty broken on this thing, and it's kind of upsetting to me because the coolest part about the wagon is obviously the hatch. If you try to open it, yeah, that doesn't sound good.
We're gonna look at the dog. And scene.